talking to John Lodge once again. This is an honor, once again, as always, about the Days of Future Past tour coming downstate, Milwaukee, on the 19th of July at the Pabst Theater with the 10,000 Light Years Band. So you've obviously been performing this show before, bringing it now here in the upper Midwest to the West Coast. What song on this tour, in the earlier part, has gotten maybe the most interesting reaction from the fans?
I don't know really, because when I play Days of Future Past, it's in its entirety. To be honest, I try and link everything up in the show, just like the album. And obviously, we have to pause sometimes, but the audience have to go along with it as well. And sometimes they don't know whether they should applaud or sit back and say yes or whatever, So it's every night it seems to be different, What people love, of course, Nights in White Satin, of course they do. But Graham, the poetry, Graham Edge does the poetry, and I've got a video of Graham Edge narrated the video, the poetry, and people really have taken to that, applause straight away when they see his face. And so, of course, a song like Peak Hour, the rock and roll song, gets the audience going. So, I don't know, I think at the perhaps the gong at the end of Days of Future Past, where Billy does gong, and that's the end of it. That's where the audience, appreciate the concert. And it's a great feeling, actually, when the gong hits. It really is, because it's a summation of 40-odd minutes of music, but also a lifetime of music that I have been performing,
Is there, it's an interesting question to ask after 50, well, gosh, now 56 years almost since the recording sessions, but I know there are a lot of acts that will record something and then they take it out on tour and then they reimagine it, and then that tour version kind of becomes the version of the song. The difference between got to set something down, you got studio time, we got to get this thing out, and then you live with it and it changes. Are there any songs on Days of Future Past you look back and you think, well, maybe we should have done it this way, and then that different version could have been the one that we all know decades later? Or do you think the Moody's kind of got it right when you were doing it the first time in the studio in '67?
We were signed to Decca Records, and the engineers and the technicians, not the guys working in the studio, but the backroom staff, they always used to say, whatever you do, make sure you can live with it forever, because the music will be there forever. If it's successful, it'll be there forever, and you never want it to haunt you. And so I think we learned from that. And so when we made Days of Future Past, we committed everything to each song, and that was it. Closed door was closed. As soon as the song was finished, closed. And that was it. And that was our moment in time when we made that record. It captured that moment. And it worked, because when I listen to the record now, or when I go on stage and perform, I always go back to the original recordings and listen to them to make sure I haven't done anything in disregard to the original recording. Because as a listener myself, I don't want to say, oh, that's not right. That isn't. It's like a lot of streaming now. A lot of records were from the 60s and early 70s. There weren't great stereo mixes. There weren't. But now somebody's gone in and remixed them and changed them. And when you hear the record, it's a, that's not the original because it didn't sound like it. It doesn't capture that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 1015 Wurlitzer jukebox from 1945, and I play 78s on that. And that all comes out of a valve mono and a 12-inch speaker. And when you listen to the records there, that's how they should sound, and that's how they do sound.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear them now on streaming services, it's like, no, that's not right. It doesn't sound. The atmosphere's gone. The intention has gone. It may be good at Wi-Fi or great audio spread, but it's not what it should be.
So do you think Days of Future Past sounds better on vinyl or listening on on a stream on like a Spotify or something like that? Your choice. What would you prefer?
Vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a vinyl. I played vinyl all the while. As I know, you people say, "Oh, well, there's scratches and this, but there's something about vinyl when you listen to a record. It breathes, and it's down to the depth of the groove. I always, this is my philosophy. When you play a CD or a stream, if you play it quieter, there's a button you have to press to make the bass come out. And the button on the amplifier, that's somebody else's idea what the bass or bottom end or bottom frequencies should sound like. Not the artist, not the engineer, not the producer. But on a vinyl, when you turn the record down, there's no red button. All the music comes down related to each other.
Mm. Gosh, I never thought of it in that context before. It's a fascinating way of looking at that. And I honestly, I don't think I've heard Days of Future Past on vinyl. I'm trying to think if my mom had a copy because loved the album, and maybe we have a copy. I have to check hers, but if so, we got a turntable, and if so, I got to listen to that on vinyl because I was listening to it again just as as a refresher. I've heard the album before, but as I was listening to it on Spotify this morning, it's okay, get those songs re-ingrained, and yeah, hearing it on vinyl, I'm sure there's got to be a different, even with the crackle, like you said, that's there. But that's how people heard it when it came out, 67, getting into 68 in America, as Moody Blues progressing in the 70s. It's still the way you would have heard it would have been putting it down on a turntable.
Exactly there. And also, of course, you had the sleeve, which you could look at, read all about it. I loved getting an album in the, when I was growing up, 50s, 60s, and I read who were the writers, who were the musicians, who were the engineers, where was it recorded, what is the Philly sound, what is Detroit, what is Chess Records. For me, it was really important. What is it about Texas that makes records different? I don't know, but I know they were different, And when they moved to Capitol in Los Angeles, why were their records different? Why did it sound different? Why did they make them different? Lots of really intricate things in rock and roll. And if you love rock and roll, you can look for those and see. I went to, been lots of times, but I went to see where Fats Domino lived after Katrina, and it's New Orleans wasteland and all that. But I went to where Fats used to record, which is a laundrette now. The building's still there, and all the walls of the laundrette, there's all the photographs of artists. And I realized Fats Domino's band was actually the band that Little Richard used. I never knew that for recording. Clans Frogman Henry used to use. So many people used to use Dave Bartholomew. Uh, and to me, that's what rock and roll is about.
Speaking of discovering little things, playing these songs as often as you have and as often as the Moody Blues have over time. I'm watching one of the fan videos from one of the earlier concerts. I was doing my prep for this to familiarize with the new versions on this particular tour. And I'm watching you play the bass. It might have been on Peak Hour. I can't remember exactly which one, but I'm watching you just picking along and playing everything. And I'm thinking, are there certain aspects of the songs, whether it's your instrumental parts, vocal parts, whatever, that pop out and kind of become fresh to you again, like a rediscovery thing? Or is it all this, I know it all and it's the same? How, you as an artist and as a musician, how often do parts kind of pop back up again?
I think they do pop up. Every time I go on stage, I want to try and play it better than I have before. Mm-hmm. I want to sing the song better than I've done before. And I'm fascinated with the whole aspect of playing. Sometimes when I'm singing and playing the bass at the same time, sometimes I think as well, how do the fingers know what to do? You know, it's and you think, don't question it. They're doing it right because I'm singing it at the same time. But yeah, I think when you write a song and write the bass part, you explore the bass part and try and make the bass part stand up on its own, like in Nights in One Setting. I could play the bass in Nights in One Setting and know people could sing the whole song to the bass line. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back to, you know, getting it right at the first time and not saying, oh, what if I'd done that or did this or changed that? No, get it so it plays a song and you're happy with it. And that's what I try to do, I think.
Mm-hmm. Jon Davison, of course, with Yes, and just had their new album come out. I was chatting with Jeff Downs about that last month, about the new album.
It's a great album.
It is.
It's a great album.
It's a really, really good one. That unit has, I mean, with all of the members they've had over time, but yet still they've got that thread there, and it's, Mirror to the Sky is excellent. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Actually, the mixing is superb as well. The sound quality of that album is superb.
What's your favorite track off that album?
And
I'm throwing you right on the spot there, but I was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it's strange because John wrote the one song, Jon Davison, which is the new single now, isn't it? But I think the title track is really interesting.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, and I remember thinking, especially that that tune going on 14 minutes, but it's a good 14 minutes of music. It's the longest Yes song they've had in I can't remember how long.
Yeah,
but it's a long one. It's a good one. There's a lot of musical depth to it. So, of course,
great musical depth, and a lot of intricacies going off in different directions, and then coming back.
Exactly. Good. So you're, of course, familiar with, I mean, for multiple reasons, familiar with Jon Davison's work. For the songs on this tour that he's performing, do you provide any guidance at all for how he approaches it? How does he look to perform the works of like what Justin had sang originally or any other given part? How does his approach come in? He's a very good vocalist in his own right. How does he come in to sing these songs?
I just said, Jon, do it your way. Do it your way. And he did it. He did it. And it's fantastic. There's obviously slightly different inflections how you sing a song, but the basis of it is absolutely fantastic. And I really enjoy doing the songs with Jon. Tuesday afternoon and nights in one setting. It's really good, really good. And you know, and he's got this great smile on his face when he's singing, which I do. And when you've got that on stage, you feel an emotion come off from the artist onto that song, and it transmits to the audience.
What is the most interesting arrangement? And by arrangement, I mean literally the instrument from the 10,000 Light Years Band on these songs. You already mentioned how, we're doing them as they were. But to adapt to who is on the stage, what's been maybe the most interesting, most intriguing adapting of a part from the original album for this particular tour with the musicians you have in this particular round with Alan, et cetera, et cetera?
It's a song that I do in the first part of the show, which is Moody Blues classic, songs. And it isn't life strange, because I always wanted to work with a cellist. And sometimes when you wish, it happens. And this guy called Jason Charbonneau from Detroit, it popped up, and is like one of me. He's fantastic, and I got him to play all the cello parts on that, and on Isn't Life Strange, and he's an incredible musician. He practices all day. Even when we were rehearsing, he's been rehearsing on his own and because I have the cello really loud on stage, so it's an integral part of the concert, not just a bit of candy floss. It's an integral part of the concert. And in Isn't Life Strange, I worked with a band, and I said, in the quiet parts, I don't want to hear anything, nothing. You pin drop on stage. But on the loud parts, it's going to be like the 1812 overture, without the cannons. But it's got to be like that. And that way you can express all your emotions in one song. And I think Isn't Life Strange, for me, does that.
Well, it's going to be fun to hear on this tour, and the new dates on this tour, or the new parts of the country on this tour, including July 19th down in Milwaukee on with the Days of Future Past tour. Jon Lodge, the 10,000 Light Years Band. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always an honor. Thank you for keeping this music going. It's great to keep hearing all across the country, and we'll be looking forward to plenty more coming down the road as you get back on the road.
Thanks so much, indeed. Thanks for the interview, and keep on doing what